Life is precious but fragile. I was enjoying myself and I was having a great time. I enjoy my family. I enjoy life, and we were living. But sometimes things become unexpected. Everyone has their ups and downs, and things always can be better. Things can always be worse. But sometimes life gets really hard, and you need to embrace the unknown and find hope in what you can. I faced a brain tumor this summer. Um, and that video didn't show it very well, but it was definitely very hard for our family. Um, we did not have the easiest of time with it. Um, you know, I have been working on trying to make this channel a hobby, and now I'm out of work. I am having a lot of trouble functioning. So I wanted to thank anyone who is going to join here and um, watch this channel. I had to take a new approach to how I'm making videos. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to make these videos live, and it's very hard for me to edit a video now. So I'm going to make these videos and then post them regular, and then when I can, I'll go back and I'll add a little bit more. So I wanted to get into my story today. This is a very tough journey. As far as I can tell, everything looks like it's good on the feed here. So we'll get into it. Let's see here. One quick second here. Okay. So I wanted to go over what happened and what the story was. So this was the kind of thing that nobody saw coming. I didn't expect it at all, and honestly, it wasn't something that we were ready for. Now, I've dealt with health problems before in the past, um, so I wasn't new to facing health problems. It's just that I know they're not always exactly easy. So when I was younger, I had childhood leukemia and basically a lot of things that went along with that. But part of my treatment was radiation, a lot of cranial radiation. And so with that cranial radiation, it's easy to think that this is probably why I had this happen to me. Um, and I think this story will be hard to tell. I know maybe not a ton of people watch it. It's okay. This is for me as much as anyone else. I'm trying to get things started here again, or is trying to get things started with making a channel again. And this video, for family, friends, anyone like that, this will be valuable. I hope. I do hope it gives some hope to people and some thought about what you can do if you are in a situation like this. Your friends and family are going to be immensely helpful. But let's get into what exactly happened. So um, I wasn't feeling great. I had some biopsies done for some basal cell skin cancer, and so I wasn't feeling great from that. And then it seemed like what I got was the flu. So I was just not feeling very good. I woke up one day just in a major sweat and panic, just feeling horrible, and I didn't really know why. And so I uh, I really struggled that day. And the next day, I was feeling pretty much the same. I woke up and I was downstairs and I woke up on the floor and I thought, wow, I must be really sick. I was on my way to try to get sick. Um, and I woke up on the floor and I thought I just passed out. I didn't think much of it, but I was very weak and it took pretty much all I had to make it back up the stairs to my bedroom. So um, I didn't really say much. I kind of mentioned it to my wife, but didn't really think too much of it. And you know what? You probably can't see my eyes very well. I'm going to turn my hat around here because I have a hat on, by the way, because of my hair, which I'll show you in a minute. But what we were looking at is, just kind of blamed it on that. Now, the next one, which still didn't quite tell me what it was, but helped me in a lot of ways determine what it was. So it's kind of sad what happened, but it's also probably a good thing that this happened, as strange as this sounds. So the next part was what we were doing is um, Just what we were doing was same thing. I was going back down to go ahead and probably get sick. I didn't know, why I was still sick. Once again, I kind of thought it was the flu, but this time I fell, and when I fell, I woke up and I had really hurt my shoulder this time. I don't know exactly what happened. I I just had definitely hurt my shoulder. Um, or my arm. I didn't know exactly what, but it felt like I really couldn't like lift it above here. So I went and woke up my wife, and once again struggled to get up the stairs. Same kind of thing as before. And I woke up my wife and told my wife, "Hey, I can't really. I don't know how to coffee, and I can't really drive to get a coffee. Can you help me out?" Because normally I drink coffee every morning. I just happen to be out. So and sorry, this stuff's kind of sensitive, but so what we did is we drove down to the local McDonald's there, and she drove, obviously, because my arm. And I went and we got, I guess, in line to get the coffee. Um, and this is where I only can really take her word for it. I don't really know exactly what happened. So we had basically gotten right in the line, and I started having a seizure. And it was apparently not just some calm seizure, it was a very violent seizure. Um, kind of like what you would see in a movie. I guess I was flailing crazy, foaming at the mouth. So my wife had freaked out, and of course, because we were only like a minute away from home, we just had left our phones at home, so we didn't have any phones or anything. Um, so she, like, she thought probably the smartest thing, and she panicked because she couldn't just take me out in the takeout line and expect there to be an ambulance that could get through and stuff. So she got us back to the our driveway here, and she got her daughter to call the ambulance, and the ambulance showed up. And when they showed up, I was still on the ground outside, or they'd helped get me on the ground outside. I don't know 100%, but I woke up in our driveway, on the ground, with them asking me questions. They're asking me, how many fingers am I holding up? What's the date today? Who's the president? A bunch of stuff like that. And I was apparently very incoherent, really unable to answer the questions. It didn't really get till probably a few minutes of me being conscious before I like knew my name, for instance, and I was able to start talking to him a little bit. So they got me loaded up in the ambulance, and at this point, my shoulder was really hurting. Whatever I had hurt before, now from flailing around and everything, and then having to get me out of the car and all that, from the seizure, hurt really bad. Maybe I made it worse. So at this point, I'm thinking, I'm not really understanding I had a seizure, but I also kind of am, or I knew something happened, and I was kind of just thinking it was because of my arm or my shoulder because it was in that much pain at that point. I had heard of people having weird things, but I wasn't really reasoning things very well either, right? So I didn't really understand exactly how things were working. Um, so we got to the hospital. They gave me a pain med to help with the pain. They did all the scans on me, on my head and my shoulder, and I fell asleep because I was had so much pain, and they gave me, like I said, that pain med there. And what we did is we woke up, or I woke up, and my wife was there with me, and we were just kind of in there by ourselves, wondering what was happening. The doctors came in, and then I'm like, "Hey, doc, what's going on? Is my arm or shoulder messed up?" And he's like, "No, that's fine," and didn't really get into it. It seemed like they didn't really find anything there. I'm like, "That's strange. Maybe it was a muscle or something." But then he goes, "But we need to talk about the massive brain tumor in your head. How long have you known about that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And like, I think you have the wrong guy. I'm thinking there's no way he's got the right guy. Um, I'm here for my shoulder doc, like my arm. You guys must have mixed up the patients, and like that's not good. But at the same time, you would have found something with my arm. I know you would have. I know what a broken bone feels like. Um, and I have a fairly high tolerance to pain for most things. So anyway, they show me this picture, and I'm going to show you guys this picture real quick because, yeah, It's like the picture that kind of changed my life for forever, kind of. So let's see here real quick. Sorry, this live stuff is hard for me. I had my wife help me set up a lot of this so I could um, get this going for you guys. So this here is the picture that we saw. So yeah, you should be seeing that. Okay, so this is the first one we saw. This is from the scan, and this is what they gave us. And you know, this is a lot. Like seeing how big this was, it was pretty nuts, and a lot of things rushed through my head. I honestly didn't think I was going to make it. I've had cancer before, like I mentioned, and with me being sick like that, I thought this was probably cancer too, and it's a tumor. It's pretty big. It's giving me seizures and stuff now, and so I'm freaking out pretty bad. My wife's definitely noticeably shaken up as well. But the doctors decided that this isn't something that they should handle at that hospital. Yeah, they have some surgeons there that can do this stuff, but this is a little bit bigger than I think they want to handle. So they load me up in another ambulance, and we go to Portland, which is Portland, Maine. It's a little bit bigger hospital, and honestly, once you guys hear, I got really lucky there as far as like who I was with surgeons and everything. Um, but anyway, so we get there, and they do a ton more scans, and these scans are all similar but a little bit more detailed. And they do the oh, I'm sorry, my brain struggles a little bit for all of this. um, I don't know if I have it in my notes. It might be the CAT scan. I forget which one's which. I'm sorry. There's a couple different scans they did on me, but they did the X-rays and CAT scans and all this stuff. This was one of the more advanced ones, and so we did this scan, and they they found similar things, but also some worse things here. So what they found was this here, and so this one was tough because this shows it even bigger, really. So we had this large one here, and then it also had a second one kind of attached to it. So we're dealing with there's another layer of it. So as you can see, you kind of go through the layers. So the bigger tumor was a little tiny bit lower, and then this one's a little tiny bit higher, but they are still connected. So it ends up being two tumors. So now I'm looking at let's be honest, probably close to a quarter of my brain. Maybe not quite, but pretty close. And I have a small head as it is. I really don't have a giant head. Maybe it looks like it because I got a mane of hair here and a beard, but I actually have a small head. Sometimes I had to struggle struggled to find fitted hats that weren't too big for me. So this is pretty crazy news. It's really even worse than we thought. So they get that scan done, and then lo and behold, you can't see it great from this one, but they also found out found my shoulder stuff. So um, my scapula ended up, and so it's hard to see because you got like a collarbone here, but then the scapula is like behind it. And I had another image, but I don't have it with me here. So the scapula was broken in three places, and then my humerus was broken in two places, and then then I had 10 microfractures between the two of them. So I also had that. So now we're looking at, I'm pretty beat up. I'm not looking at this being an easy thing to recover from. Um, so I'm basically living in the hospital yet again. I lived in the hospital as a kid too for a little while. I wouldn't say it's living. I'd say more staying. I actually lived there as a kid. So we're looking at road recovery. So they started trying to schedule my surgeries. Obviously the tumors are the bigger priority. They throw me on a sling. They got me hooked up to IVs and everything, and get me ready. But as they're doing all the other tests, they do blood work tests as well. And just to make things bad news worse, my kidneys are failing. So with my kidneys failing, now they can't do the surgeries because I am going to have trouble with, with the anesthesia. Anesthesia. You guys know what I mean. So they don't think I could do very well with it. Also recovering from the surgery with failing kidneys, that wouldn't obviously be a good idea either. So we have to put that off so that my kidneys will heal. So we spend the next probably about 2 weeks or so. I say we. I spend the next 2 weeks or so in the hospital, but my wife is literally coming down every single day after work and getting our daughter ready and fed and all this stuff. She's coming down to visit me. It's about an hour away each, or an hour each way. And then she's visiting me as well. So she's doing this. This is taking a toll on her. She's, trying to be the in between my family and stuff, when they can't talk to me and when everything's going on. So we've got, we've honestly got a lot. It's hard. It's not the easiest of things. So what happens is she has a stroke, and this is not the news we need. This is pretty harsh, and luckily, she recovered fairly quick, but she still has some lasting effects that mess with her vision a little bit more. And so this is making it pretty hard. She still manages to come see me. I think maybe she missed a day, but I mean, she was my rock. Like, if without her, not only did she like pretty much save my life, that along with strangely having the seizure and breaking my shoulder, because that's what made me go get the coffee, or made her drive me to go get the coffee. Otherwise, I probably would have driven, had a seizure, or we never would have known that I was having seizures. Um, so between my wife and my coffee and shoulder, that pretty much saved me from having this tumor until it killed me, right? And at least we found out about it. Um, and so we're there, and sorry, I get lost easy. I've got some still effects from this. But they can't schedule stuff. My wife was sick. She's still coming up. We make it through those 2 or so weeks, and my kidneys are finally healing up. It's good news. So we're finally getting there. And this time I've had a bunch of roommates in between, um, different guys, some worse than me, some better than me, some that are friendly, some that aren't. I had some good talks about people, and had some time to reflect. It's not my first time thinking I could have died, so it's not fun for me, but it's also something that sometimes we have to think about. And this is where, hope becomes a big part of it. Without friends and family, and my kids coming to visit me and everything, I don't know if I would have made it through this. This is a hard time. And the pain meds they had me on had me groggy and out of it and stuff. So it was hard, but at the same time, I was able to think enough. Now, at this point, my kidneys are starting to heal up enough, so they decide to go ahead and schedule the tumor removal. So we go down, and my wife's out there waiting, and she's waiting for about 3 hours before she hears from anybody, which is, about how long normally it would take to get everything going. But there was some delays. And what happens is, so they shave my head, which is kind of hard to see. Oh, it's this side. Kind of hard to see. But they shave my head, and basically my hair is really short here now, whereas it's pretty long. So um, still wet from taking a shower. But anyway, that's why I'm wearing a hat. So they shave my head, get it all ready, and get me all ready to do the surgery. They put me out, knock me out completely, get me all asleep, so I'm ready for it and whatnot. And then they discover right up here, um, wherever it was there, it's up next to it. I had some biopsies done for some basal cell skin cancer. So my second type of cancer, not as big a deal, but still very annoying. I've been dealing with that since I was 16, kind of all over the place. We get it taken care of, and then a couple of years later, it creeps up. So I have a few spots on my head, and with all this stuff going on, I mean, I think we mentioned it, but they just didn't get taken care of. And so right near the incision spot, one of them got infected, and so they had to stop the surgery, bring me back. My wife thought I was in surgery the whole time. They went out and told her that they canceled it. And so, there's a few good chunks of time that she wasted just thinking I was getting surgery. So then we go back up, and they're like, well, it's going to take you more time for that to heal, but you don't necessarily need to be under hospital observation for that. We're going to let you go home for a little while, and we're going to get your other surgery scheduled, because we know that this much time you should be good to go. We'll check on you, and then we'll get you prepped. So they scheduled my surgeries, my shoulder and my tumor. I Now this is where I kind of got mixed up, and I should have probably asked my fiance there, but I think we did my shoulder one first, then my tumor one. But like I said, they let me go home first. So when we went home, I really was like, we still didn't know if this was cancerous. We still didn't know if I would survive. We hadn't even done one surgery at this point. So I asked my wife to go ahead and I wanted to take her to just take me somewhere beautiful. I didn't know where she was going to take me. I really just wanted to go somewhere and do something. I didn't want to be cooped up inside. I had too many days of just being in a hospital, being in a bed, and I was in a lot of pain. But I was in pain whether I was in bed or not. Yeah, moving hurt a lot worse. Getting in a car hurt a lot worse. But I was still in pain in the bed trying to drink a drink. It wasn't. It was worse, but it wasn't that much worse. So she surprised me, and she took me over to Mount Washington. And I had never been to Mount Washington before. It's definitely a very beautiful place. Um, and while we were there, um, it was definitely something that was almost spiritual. They gave me. Oh, sorry, my tummy. I apologize for that. My tummy's growling a little bit. Um, I've got some fun stomach issues after all this, but it was definitely beautiful. I hadn't been there before, and surprising with this, it was a little bit of a drive, but we went up, and you start at the bottom, and we're used to mountains. She's actually from Colorado, and I'm from Arizona, which sounds flat until you live in the Rockies and Flagstaff, and it's definitely not flat. As a matter of fact, I lived at an altitude that was about as high as the top of this mountain. So this is one of the highest mountains around, but out west, it was basically where I lived. So the interesting thing is, as you go up a mountain, it has different climates essentially. You start out with like a lot of trees and everything, down lower, and you can see me wearing my sling. At this point, I haven't had either surgery. Um, I'm pretty miserable, but I'm trying to enjoy life. I'm thinking this could be my last time, not necessarily outside, but it's something pretty like this. I don't know what's going to happen next, right? I just want good thoughts before all the surgeries. And then, kind of as you go up, it gets a little bit more sparse vegetation. I don't remember the climate, each of the zones, but they had labels and everything. But it's really pretty up there. It starts to just get just really nice, but it was getting windy and starting to get colder as you go up. Of course, we brought coats, but apparently it was really warm down at the bottom, and we brought stuff to be warmer at top, but apparently we're not quite prepared enough. This was still okay right about here. This is so fragile alpine zone, and keep in mind it's summer, so this is all open. It's quite a toll on your car getting up, but not nearly as bad as the toll on your car going down. So getting up, it's a windy road. It's definitely not for the inexperienced. My wife drove it, and so even though she's a good driver, I was still nervous because I'm used to driving. But it's windy, and it's like fairly narrow, um, and going down, it's a lot of braking. So they have several spots where it's highly suggested you pull off and cool down your brakes. And trust me, it's highly suggested you pull off and cool down your brakes as you're going down. But going up, not too bad. Sorry, a couple doubles here sometimes. But as we went up, it changes to this very rocky, more sparse area. And then the fog started rolling in. So the fog was pretty intense. It got so nuts up here by the time you got to the top that you couldn't see much. But then we got to the top, and yeah, like there's a sign there, tells you, how far up you are and everything. They got the markers. This is about as high as you can go, the tip top house. And then there's the summit sign. And so we made it all the way up there, and gorgeous views, and I was just so blown away that it was easy enough for me to be, even though I was in pain and have this tumor in my head, to at least momentarily kind of forget about it and just enjoy life again. Um, Obviously, we had to try hard to enjoy things. I had to be a little goofy, but um, it was well worth it, and I'm definitely glad that she brought me up there. So as we kind of go from that, then I went back and I got my surgeries. The first one, like I said, I believe it was my shoulder. And so when I got my shoulder, I, I got put under. It wasn't exactly fun once again, but they took care of me. Now, some of the stuff now, I might have mentioned, I put this marked as for only people over 18. If you want to review this with your kids, that's perfectly fine. But there will be a couple of things of medical imagery in here. This is not something that should be like too bad, but I will show just like two pictures of like where the scar was after the incision. And of course, these couple x rays. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. But that's why I did make sure I marked it as 18. I try to make stuff that I want parents to watch if they feel like watching it with their kids. It's not that I discourage that, but I want to make sure that they're the ones watching it. It is mostly content for them. Um, but like I said, some of these stories can be inspiring or real for kids, maybe more like high school kids or something that you want to watch them with or talk to them about. Um, so just something to kind of keep in mind. I will show a couple medical images now if you are squeamish. I think they're pretty mild, but also my sensitivity to medical images, because of my experience in hospitals and all that, um, it might be less than yours. So I say that as I have this up on the screen. But this was the shoulder, so not as bad as some people's stuff. So throughout this whole thing, I'm trying to think, it could be worse. Um, but this only shows part of it. But basically, they use this plate to secure my shoulder, um, and no cast or anything because of the way that everything was. It's my scapula, and so like when my humerus being broken, they couldn't put a cast on my shoulder to try to heal my humerus or keep it in place, because then the scapula wouldn't have healed. So I really just had a sling and then this chunk of titanium screws. He used some wire and stuff, and they held that together. I had a surgeon that, from everyone I talked to, including my physical therapist, was definitely a good surgeon. So they did a good job, and I certainly apologize for that. I do not have backup internet. That is something I cannot afford right now. So I certainly apologize for that outage. I hope I didn't lose anyone during that. As I make this into a real video, I'll obviously cut that out. But for those watching it live or watching the live recording, yeah, complete internet outage. I'm connected to our backup Wi-Fi, so I may not be streaming as well. Honestly, that was an interesting one and kind of made me forget where I left off. But I'm pretty sure I was just finishing up with my shoulder, and so with my shoulder, we were done with that, and it was time to move on. I went home again for a couple days. I think it was actually probably a couple weeks, and they had me on some pretty strong pain meds. Definitely had me kind of jacked up, and spent basically the next bit in bed. I don't think I went out much. Maybe went to the store once or twice, but definitely didn't do a lot. So recovery time was not fun. But then let's check my notes here and see where I was. Okay. Um, then the next thing is getting the tumor done. So we go in for the tumor surgery. At this point, I'm fairly familiar with it, unfortunately, because they had already gone through this process as far as getting knocked out and my head shaved. So they had to shave my head a little bit more. It's been a couple weeks, so hair grew back. They knocked me out, and they do the surgery. It takes a little longer than normal. I guess the reason for that was, and graphic warning, they cut your head open, the saw, the bone and everything. They pull it back and they manually cut the tumor out. And, the front part is dangerous, obviously, and they need to remove it. But then as it goes into the middle, there's more vital brain stuff, functions. So he got almost, or got the whole first one as far as we understand. The second one he got a lot of, but wasn't able to completely get it. Um, so we have to wait a little bit, and we're gonna go back and we're gonna see what still needs to be done, what is done, um, and whether we need radiation or we can just watch it slowly and hope it doesn't grow anymore. Maybe he got most of it, so there's a chance it could be mostly gone. Um, but obviously not an easy process. And going into this, we didn't know what I might lose. They didn't really either. They made it seem like, in general, I should be okay. I'm sorry, my stomach. I definitely should have had a snack. Um, I have some tummy issues because of all this, um, but yeah, they didn't really know what I might lose and whatnot, and so obviously I was pretty freaked out. My wife was probably more freaked out because she's like, "What if you don't remember me?" That's the kind of thing you face. Like, what if you forget this, and what if you forget that? Um, Spoiler alert: I'm still here. I remember a lot. I definitely have some memory issues and whatnot. Oh goodness, I really hope those stomach sounds are not coming through on this video. Okay. Anyway, um, we get the tumor done. We get it out. They sew me back up, and at this point, speaking of tummy issues, I hadn't eaten in like 36 hours and kind of a rage monster. Unfortunately, when I get hungry. So anyway, she didn't like that. So she wanted to see me. She really didn't want to go without seeing me. So as soon as the surgery was done, they let it before they were completely done. They woke me up, and I still had a tube, like a drainage tube and stuff sticking out of my head and all this stuff completely, like, still gunk all over me from surgery and everything. Um, and they let her see me just so she would know that I still remember her and that she loved, sorry, to make sure, that I knew she loved me and there was someone there for me. She didn't want to leave without, she couldn't come back till the next day, so she didn't want to leave without at least seeing me. So I'm glad they let her in. And so I got to see her, and it was good to know I remembered her. I was still very out of it, don't get me wrong, but I knew who she was and everything. I knew who I was. Um, Sorry, this part gets hard. Um, so, she left for the night, and I went upstairs and pretty much crashed for the night. I struggled, definitely. Woke up a lot. Um, was very confused and stuff still. But other than the worst headache you could ever imagine, it doesn't you don't really get pain on the inside of your head. You get skin pain, um, but you don't feel the wound. But what you do feel, which is probably one of the most unnerving, just horrible things, is you feel like the plates, because there's 5 titanium plates in my head, and you feel like those plates are like moving around. And it's very unnerving. So anything like straining, even to use the restroom, anything like that, they don't want you to do coughing or sneezing. Any of that could disrupt the scar, um, cause you to have a plate kind of pop out. It's just not good in general. So it was really disturbing. Like, it's the hardest thing to describe, but you can like hear it in your head. It's almost like concrete grinding, but it's like your bone and metal plates and stuff grinding. It's just very unnerving. But they do some scans again once I'm healed up enough, um, to see what got taken out, what didn't, make sure I'm okay. And so then we go to some different scans here. And so that's not the best one, but as you can see, the portion of my brain that's missing is almost an entire quarter of it, where they had to take that chunk out. Um, and so then he went towards the middle too. So it was a significant piece of my brain that was gone. Um, it's not necessarily that I use that part of my brain, but it disrupts because that was all tumor. It smushed the rest of my brain, I guess. At least that's my understanding. Smushed it there and there. Maybe it takes over some of it. I don't know, but it definitely affected me. Because of it, I've got some memory issues, lots of vision issues, which I've been addressing. I've got just I stumble for certain words. I've always been pretty good linguistically, but I won't know a word or something, and I can usually find a substitute word. But for instance, with my wife, if I'm trying to talk to her about something, just arbitrary, maybe washing laundry, I won't remember what the washing machine is called. And yeah, I can call the washing machine right now, but I just won't remember. I won't know, and I'll have to describe it as like you put clothes in and it the water spins it, it washes it, and then I'll be like, oh, a washing machine or something like that. Or I still won't even gather that it's a washing machine, even though I could tell you what it does. So it's a very weird feeling. I'll just miss words. I didn't used to stutter and stumble very much. I I tend to stutter a little bit more, especially when I'm either nervous or upset. Um, and that stuttering was what happened, what I felt like, and what I sounded like before I had the seizure. So obviously, we get really worried about that when it happens. Definitely not something that that we're looking forward to dealing with long term. But so far, I haven't had another seizure as far as we know. So once again, they went from that to that. So the recovery process is tough. But honestly, I was in and out of the hospital quicker than I thought. So we were getting towards 4th of July weekend, and I think it was this decision had to been made after me being there for the mandatory. I want to think 72 hours, maybe it was longer than that. I don't remember. It was a little less than a week. I think they had to make a decision as to keep me or send me home. And with 4th of July weekend coming up, that meant I'd be there 4th of July and 5th of July, and then maybe even 6th of July because of the way that staffing was. And so they didn't, because of the way they'd have to have admissions release me, and the timing of the way it landed and with the way the Sunday was. I don't remember exactly all the details, but it looked like I would maybe have to spend another 3 days. So we, worked with the doctors, and they thought as long as, I pretty much stayed home, only went local places and rested a lot, and I'd be okay. So they sent me home. Seemed like the right decision, and it still seems like it probably was. I guess this next part could have happened to anyone. Um, but we went home, and then I wanted to at least, do something. So we decided to go out to breakfast on the 4th of July. Like I at least, I was obviously supposed to remain in bed, and I was remaining in bed. But at this point, I'd been in and out of bed for the month, and trying very hard to stay there, but getting very cooped up and stuff. And so I just wanted to see some people. So we went to breakfast with some friends, and I was doing okay. They said I was doing really well. Obviously, very out of it, very much still stumbling and not really able to keep myself up. Needing to get help, walking places, and just very dizzy and stuff, and struggling for conversation. But I was alive, and I was there, and I was able to talk to people. Like it wasn't like I was completely gone. So I was pretty grateful. Then things were felt okay, but then like by the next day, something weird happened, and I started to like swell up. So we talked to the doctors, and I guess this was kind of normal. Once again, a kind of disturbing image here because you got my shaved head with my scar, but then you can see my eyes kind of start to swell. And then that's in the beginning. And then it wasn't too long before I was looking like that. And this. And I think that might be the worst. And so I basically couldn't see out of this eye. And actually, I feel like I got one more. I don't see it here. That got even worse than this. But basically, I spent the next like 3 days like that. Um, so that was certainly not my idea of fun. Um, it was definitely difficult, and I was really worried. Now, we don't know if my vision was already worse because of this, or before this, or if this actually caused more vision issues. But it definitely was stressful. You know, you could see that it was like definitely a lot of swelling and a couple days like that. So if it kept getting worse, though, they said I would have had to go, into them or the hospital, and then the swelling started going down. So I started feeling better again, and not great, but going down. Here we are. We're looking at. It's been, let's see, six. We're looking at almost 9 months so far, and I I basically can't use a computer for more than an hour. I can't read more than maybe 10 pages in a book at a time. These things exhaust me. But the recovery started, and it's definitely slow. I couldn't do anything until the end of October because they wanted to make sure that my head had healed up. So I couldn't even start my rehab of my arm. So basically, my arm was healing that whole time too, and really painful. But after that, in October, we started to know what would be the problems remaining, what wouldn't be problems remaining. A lot of my speech started to come back better. It's still not good, but at least I don't have quite as many problems as I did. So we know I still need to work on that, but it wasn't like the priority. My vision seems to be one of the biggest problems and priorities that we had to work on, but obviously my shoulder was still there in the way. So I had to do physical therapy for that. I'm pretty good. I got most of my movement back. It still hurts. There's still a plate there. So, like at certain places, it clicks or feels weird. The weather makes it hurt. But for the most part, I've got most of my movement still a little sore, gets stiff, and probably like half my strength. I still need to keep working on strength, maybe a little more than half, but still working on it. But in general, the shoulder is as good as could be expected. It's not healing really any worse than anyone else's. Um, the tumor, as I kind of showed you guys, we don't know how much is left, but as far as the scar goes, I can barely even see it. The hair is starting to grow back, but it's definitely still short there. So, thus the reason for the hat. I can kind of do a comb over to cover it up, but I don't go out in public because a lot of time with it. I mean, I do go out in public. I don't really go out in public like that because a lot of the time it will just straight up mohawk, and with it not centered, it is a weird spot for a mohawk, and kind of makes me I'm not gonna lie, it makes me a little self conscious. It's not something you like to have to tell everybody that you had a tumor all the time, even though I'm telling you guys on YouTube, I guess. So, um, you know, it's definitely one of those ones that, okay, that's still going. For a minute, I worried there that it wasn't working. Okay. Um, but, it started healing and time goes by. Now here it is. And I've got my shoulder all fixed and stuff. And then I finally got to see an eye doctor. I couldn't just go get eyeglasses. I had to see, I think it's called a neuro ophthalmologist, because they have to do a lot of tests to see not just my vision, but my focusing and like what's going on. So we went and did those testing, and it turns out I got about a 4 inches, I think, or four. I think I can't remember exactly. I'm sorry, but I basically am off to the left by a pretty significant amount. So like when they do the centering, and then I have really weird focus in one of my other eyes, where it keeps losing focus, goes back, loses focus, almost like if I sat there doing this with a camera. That's what that eye does, and then it also does it this direction. So it will like constantly go and drift, but then also go in and out. This eye is much worse than it used to be. I basically used to have what I consider above perfect vision. Um, as I age, I'm sure my vision was going to get worse, so maybe these would have been needed. But I also have some crazy light sensitivity. So a big part of why I'm trying to do these live is my light sensitivity alone is enough that when I try to jump into the edit page in DaVinci Resolve or the color page, I literally can't look at the color page. Like the information, the circles, I don't know what it is. Certain lights. So like I can handle black lights, but then some black lights basically drop me. We were at Meow Wolf, which is probably pushing what I should have done, not to lie, visually, but we went to Meow Wolf, for instance, and I was able to handle most of it. Even the strobe lights, which I was really worried about. I was like, oh, maybe I should close my eyes for these. But we got into one room, and whatever it was about those black lights, like the frequency or something, it literally dropped me. Like I had to like lean on my wife and have her basically carry me out of that room. There's some like specifically like LED tail lights that are really bright that obviously bug some people anyway, but some of those affect me really hard, really harshly. Um, what else we got? Um, I don't know, just a lot of vision issues, but it got me some blue tinted glasses. I'm trying to get used to them with these ones, and then I got some reading glasses that are plain. I've been using those less than I'd like because that transition's awkward. Like I still have that area that my vision is still better, but then the shift makes it worse, and I see double, but then it's still more clear of I don't know, whatever it is. And then I got these ones that work better for distance, but for some things like right here I should have the shorter one. So that's pretty much normal people glasses issue, I guess. It's still new to me, so I'm not going to lie. It's definitely something that I'm getting used to still. But I'm doing now vision therapy, so it's definitely a weird one. It seems very simple, the tasks that she gives me, but when you start to actually do them, goodness, it wears out your eyes. You think all day looking at things, you adjusting, vision and focusing and all that would be enough to wear you out too, which it does, driving or being in the car. But as soon as you have things like objects that you're specifically moving your head to or not moving your head to or doing focused distances with like your thumb or have this like string with balls on it, which I know sounds really weird, but you basically do different focus points on it and move it around. It's actually really taxing and it wears me out. I already struggled to basically keep more than I don't know, more than something like till 2 or 3 before I almost drop and get tired. I have been trying not to take those naps so that I sleep better, but obviously I struggle to sleep too. I get lots of headaches, maybe get 4 hours of sleep at a time, and my stomach's upset a bunch from all this. It's not done great to my mental health, but as I always try to keep looking at it, it could be worse. I'm still here. I'm still able to talk to you. Um, I think a big part of that is any kind of friends and family you might ever have. If they step up or they can be there for you, it's it's so huge. So one thing to think about is if you need that or want that, try to reciprocate. Make sure you're there for your friends and family. It's amazing what one person can do. My family was there and visiting, but if it wasn't, and like they sent some help and food and things like that. Even meals are an amazing thing. You get a few meals, and it just reduces so much stress for other people. It helps us. We get something good to eat, but then my wife didn't have to cook. It gives her free time to catch up on something else that she fell behind. But if it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would have made it through this. So sometimes all it takes is just one person there for support, one person there to save somebody else. Um, and so just keep that in mind. It's life is important and it's important to live. I think I already had that perspective. That's part of why both of us facing health challenges before, we've been trying to do as much as possible. On this channel, we want to take you guys through our journeys as well as try to give tips and tricks when we can. We're not complete experts, but both my kids are grown up now. We still got a 13-year-old that we're raising, so you can learn with us. Try not to make some of the same mistakes we've made, and we're there just to give tips and stuff. Not every parenting style is going to be the same, and not every parent is going to be able to take tips from this. This was less about a parenting video today. This is more about my journey, and an excuse why I haven't been around, but also an attempt to get some live streaming going, and an attempt to come back. If I can come back from this and I can get this kind of content to work for me, this is a lot less wear and tear. My wife could help me set it up, get the information I need to be able to share with you guys. I don't have to look at screens and stuff for more than a few minutes at a time. And this will help rehab me to be able to hopefully at some point go back to do the job again, to be able to handle looking at screens all day and be able to, you know, not get frustrated and confused doing this. So she's helping me make baby steps. I don't think I could have set this stuff up without her either. This kind of thing would have taken me, you know, an hour in the past, but we're looking at a week with me trying to help explain what I need to do to her and teach her, you know, the best I can without really knowing or showing her how to do it. You know, like telling her how I would have learned it or whatnot and stuff. So, um, you know, life's important. It's important to kind of schedule things to look forward to. We've got some stuff to look forward to. We've got to do quite a bit since you know, because we've been really pushing ourselves since I healed up and things we had obligations to do. So we had a really rough summer, obviously, last year. Maybe we're overdoing it, but we're trying to make up for it now. But my healing process is still slow. You know, I can do things that are enjoyable and I can enjoy them, but I do feel less intelligent. I feel somewhat. I've always been immature, but I feel somewhat more immature from like an intellectual, um, an emotional standpoint. I'm more likely to like, ugh, and just grumpy, like toddler, high school type feelings or behavior. I can even like tell like I'm getting grumpy about something really dumb, like a piece of cheese on something, or I don't know, something that wouldn't bug me normally. It's just things like that that are hard to deal with. I think that one of the worst parts is I'm aware of them. I'm aware that I used to be capable of this. I'm aware that I should be able to do this. I'm aware that my brain even knows that, um, because I can understand it. The good thing is it makes it something I can work on. The hard thing is sitting there watching yourself not be able to be yourself. Um, I'm a big part of who I was still, but I'm not who I was. So, anyway, sorry. Don't like to be so emotional with it, but it's obviously a tough subject. I apologize for my internet going out randomly in the middle of this. This was not the kind of stream that I wanted to be my first live stream. I wanted to make sure I got this information out there, but I wasn't planning on having this internet just drop out randomly in the middle of this. I will hopefully be able to pull this together and put it into a cohesive video, but that may take time. That's part of why I wanted to get this going. Do look for my next live stream in a couple days, hopefully, where I'm going to try a similar approach, but talk to parents about making Marvel Rivals safer and whether it's safe for kids, and a couple other topics. I'm going to try to do a few of these, throw in maybe a game every couple of them, and just some other tips and tricks. So if you like that idea, or if you have any other, advice, if you thought this worked other than its glitches, let me know. And if you if you think this will help you, also let me know. If you think you hate it, let me know. If it looks horrible, things like that. But once again, my name is Shay, and hopefully you guys will like this and subscribe. I know this was a first attempt, so it's not perfect by any means, but I should only be able to improve from here. This is my story, and hopefully it gives you some hope. Don't think about it from a negative. Think about it from a positive. Like, this is not something that is great, but you only live so long. You might as well enjoy your life and live it. If nothing else, hopefully this message of what, can happen is enough to let other people know not only maybe you can relate, things can always be worse. Things could have been worse for me too. I do hope that it also helps to encourage people to help others when some stuff like this helps, because look, I'm still here. I'm still a person. If it wasn't for help, I may not exist anymore. Um, be unalived. So that's all I really have to say. I know it's a lot and I rambled on, but that's something I still can do. So I do hope that, some sort of community picks this up and at least supports this venture. If nothing else, I will talk to you all later, and thank you for joining me. I did see at least somebody in there, so whoever you were, almost nobody watching, but hey, at least somebody did. So thank you, whoever it was. Hopefully, some of you will catch this on the not on the live stream here. Once again, I apologize for the random outage during the middle of it. Thanks, guys. Oh, what's it doing? Okay, well, I was almost out of there. All right, well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect our YouTube channel, Parents Guide to the World. My name is Shay. Hope you guys have a great rest